Sally Alcoholics.
Hi,
Sally. Welcome if you're new or coming back to Alcoholics Anonymous, and happy birthday if you have a birthday for the month of June. So my sobriety date is April 30th, 1984. I have a sponsor that I got when I was 14 years sober, and I've had her all this time. I have a home group, Whiskey Rose. We meet on Tuesday nights at 6:30. It's a 1-hour closed meeting for alcoholics only. You're all welcome to come. And I have 2 service commitments. I got railroaded actually into both of them. I'll be honest. I'm the district secretary for our district, and I'm also the business meeting secretary at my home group. So those are the 4 things that I talk about, and I try to instill in other people that those 4 things I've had since I walked in the doors of Alcoholics Anonymous. They're both very, very important to me and my sobriety, that I keep those intact, because when I don't want to be the district secretary, which most months I don't, I suit up and I show up because I have that commitment. And these are all the things that have helped me to stay sober one day at a time for 38 years. So my story is much different than a lot of people, and yet very the same as others. I come from a family of non-alcoholics. My mom and dad were married for 60 years. My grandparents were married for 70 years. So I come from long-term marriages and commitment, and no alcohol and no drugs. A little disclaimer, my story includes lots of drugs. You know, you shoot it, you smoke it, you swallow it, whatever. However, I have a big respect for the traditions of our program. So I'll just give that little disclaimer, and then that's all I'm going to say about my drug use. So I have 2 sisters, an older one and a younger one, and my family was very active with vacations and church, and I was a Job's daughter, and I was a pioneer girl, and I was a Girl Scout, and my mom and dad put me in all these little groups. You know, I was a joiner. I had no idea I would one day join Alcoholics Anonymous, but I was a joiner as a child, and even that did not keep me from my drinking career. My dad was a sergeant in the Army, and then he later became a policeman, and he was the sheriff in Natchez, Washington. And when he was the sergeant in the Army, he taught the very first WACs how to salute and march and be, you know, upstanding members of our armed forces. And then he became a policeman. He was from the South, as was my mother. So they were very big on respect, you know, yes sir, no sir, yes ma'am, no ma'am, you know, please, thank you. We ate dinner at the dinner table. We said prayer. You couldn't leave the dinner table unless you asked to please be excused. And so, you know, that's how I was raised, very, very strict. And so when I took my first drink, I got that relief from that strictness, and I figured out how I could maneuver through that. And so the lying and the cheating and the drinking and all that started very young for me. And I didn't hang out with people that didn't drink like me and drug like me. If you didn't do that, I either didn't know you or I didn't want to know you. And all my friends, that's what we did. I live in Renton, where I have lived since I was 2 years old. And so I never used, everybody I know drinks, and so how am I going to get sober? You know, I wanted sobriety more than I didn't. And so I managed to come into AA in 1984 and stay. But my drinking took me to, I had 3 DWIs. I've been married several times, four times. I finally got it right, I think. But everybody that I married was the same as me, except for my third husband. He was a person in sobriety. My second husband, he was really into drugs. And I remember when he told me that, I thought I had hit the jackpot, because he was into drugs that I didn't know nothing about. And so I was really curious about, oh, this is a piece of, you know, drug world that I didn't know about. And he also drank a lot. In 1984, he got sober. We were separated and he'd gone to treatment. So he had 30 days. when I finally went to treatment. And he's the person that I called. Um, and he took me to a meeting at the Rendezvous down here on Second Avenue.
Nice.
And the Rendezvous was it was in the bar, and it was a dark and gloomy place. I sat, it was like layered, and so I sat up in the top layer so I could look down on all the alcoholics. And I felt so bad for you guys. He later took me to Fremont, old Fremont. And again, they had that little rise in the back by the windows, and I would sit up on that back part. And, you know, again, looking down on all the poor little alcoholics that had to come to these AA meetings. And that was the beginning of my sobriety. You know, my story, again, you know, I had 3 DWIs, been to jail, wrecked cars, slept around. I've done all that stuff. Our book says we tell what we were like. It doesn't say it, it says we, what we were like, what happened, and what we are like today. So, in telling a little bit of my story, it gives you a glimpse of what I was like. I was insecure. People can relate to that. You might not be able to relate to my story, but you can certainly relate to the feeling of why we drink, because that's what we all have in common, I believe. So the insecurity and no self-esteem and the lying and the cheating and the stealing, and that's what I was like. And I really like to focus on that because those are things that, because of coming to Alcoholics Anonymous and suiting up and showing up no matter what, I've been able to change. I've been able to change that stuff. So 1984, I had my last drunk. It was a beer up at TR Garrity's in West Seattle. I mean, really, that's my last drink. And I woke up on a Monday morning. I'd been on a 3-day drunk, and I woke up on a Monday morning, and I was sick, so sick as a dog. And I didn't go to work. And I was one of these people that always was at work. I kept a bottle of whiskey in the back bathroom where I worked. And I made a little sit-upon like we used to make in Girl Scouts. And I had my sit-upon and my little Pygmania game and my fifth of whiskey back in the bathroom so I could escape from work and go back in the bathroom and drink. And but that Monday, I couldn't go to work. I was so sick. And Tuesday, I woke up and I was so sick, couldn't go to work. And so I called bachelor number 2, who had been to treatment 30 days before me. Well, he picked me up and he took me to these meetings at the Rendezvous and up at the at Fremont. And during that week, he actually got me a bed in treatment. And on Friday, I had tickets, the 11th row at the Alabama concert, and I went to treatment instead. And I sat in that treatment center, and they put me in a little corner room, and I was so sick. I was just detoxing off all of these drugs and all this alcohol that I drank, and it was seeping out of my pores, and I was puking, and I will never, ever forget that. I don't want to ever forget that week before I went to treatment and the following couple of weeks past that. But when I got out of treatment, the first thing I did was go to a meeting. And it's when the old SEAL Club was down in Renton. And I had gone down to the SEAL Club, and I would just suit up and show up and go and sit down there at the SEAL Club. And for those of you who don't know, the SEAL Club used to be a bowling alley, and they had dances on Friday nights, and they had pool tables and a hamburger bar, and they had lots of meetings, and it was totally a gathering. It was really a fun place. And I would take a book down there, not the big book, but I would take a book, and I would pretend to read. And eventually, people started coming up to me, and eventually, I started to make friends. And you know, I got involved with the Fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous way before I ever got into the big book. The fellowship is very, very important. However, it's not going to keep us sober. And but you know, we did hay rides at Christmas, and we did the dances, and we traveled around to all these meetings, and we did all this stuff. And there was such a close knit pack of people that we ran with, who a lot of them are today dead, drunk, or have moved away. I mean, I don't know where really any of them are anymore. But so, you know, my sobriety has been lots of ups, really good stuff. And I've had a lot of diversity and really bad stuff happen. So I get sober in 84. In 1988, I used to ride motorcycles. I had my own bike. I rode with the Alki Angels, and we would go every Tuesday night to a meeting somewhere. And we had been out to the Fremont meeting on our bikes. And on the way home, I got in a motorcycle accident. You know, back in those days, you didn't have to wear a helmet. And so my bike flipped in the air and landed on my head. And the highway peg, your foot peg, went through the back of my head. And I wound up on life support for a week. And, you know, I don't remember a lot of that. I mean, most of what I tell because other people have told me. But I do remember the Alki Angels coming there in their leather gear and skipping through the hallway. And they had to put a note on my door to keep the AAP, because there was some, I mean, you know how we are, and none of us have any sense, so we just go anyway. And the hallway would be full of these AA people. And I just have always cherished that, because when I got out of the hospital, they came up there in force and made me get back on my bike. And I didn't have any hair because they shaved my head, right? And they brought up one of those clown wigs and made me put the clown wig on, and off we went on our motorcycles. So, you know, it was really, really a bad time and a good time. It's like a double-edged sword in this program, you know. For every bad thing, there's always the other side of that sword. Excuse me. In 1988, that happened. And in 1998, I was 14 years sober, and my dad died. And I found out I had hepatitis C from my previous nonsense. And I had these really traumatic things happen. You know, my father, who was very strict, as I said, he was ill, and him and I were sitting. We were sitting together one day. My mom had gone for a hamburger or something, and he reached over and patted me on my leg and said, "Sally Marie," oh, I can hardly tell this. "I'm really sorry for all the things I did to you." And I was able to say the same thing back to him and make that amends to my dad. And he passed away just a couple days after that. And I mean, it's just the closure that happened in that moment. I mean, I don't know where I would be today had that not happened, because he was a raging asshole. I'm so glad he forgot to drink, you know, but in the end, it was all good. And amends is so healing. And I was able to make that with him too, because I was no saint, let me tell you. The hepatitis C thing, you know, I had to do chemotherapy for a year, and that was not fun. But, you know, I suited up and I showed up and I went to meetings no matter what, as sick as I was from doing that chemotherapy for a whole year. And I was able to beat the hepatitis C. That same year, I got the sponsor that I currently have. And wow, what I learned to say to her was, okay, that's it. She was giving me these exercises and telling me to read these books and to do all this stuff and meet with her weekly. And, you know, I would just say, okay, whatever she told me to do, I did. I had no idea at 14 years sober that I was as sick as I was. I thought, I'm 14 years sober, you know, I got all the answers. And come to find out it wasn't like that. And so she took me through the steps 1 through 12 out of the big book, read every single word in the first 164 pages to me. And we described words, and we went through sentence structure, and we did all this stuff. And again, all these exercises. My first step exercise, I had to write a list of 5 things, five ways my life is unmanageable, and 5 ways that I'm powerless over alcohol. And I not only didn't agree with that exercise, I thought it was the stupidest thing ever, but I just said, okay, and I did it. And I really got to see that powerless has 2 definitions. I'm powerless if I pick up the drink, and I'm also powerless in that alcohol is everywhere. It's everywhere. I mean, we can walk out the front door here and find something that's related to alcohol. And it was really eye-opening for me. Step 2, you know, came to believe in a power greater than myself was easy, because step 1 showed me I had absolutely no power. So step 2, come to believe in a power greater than myself, was pretty easy. Step 3, then I'm going to turn my will and my life over, which is my thinking and my actions. If I can turn my thinking over, then my actions will follow. And that was a tough exercise to finally figure out and get it tweaked in my head that the best I'm ever going to do, even today, is align my will with God's will for me. And if I'm in alignment, I know I'm probably going to be doing okay. I believe that God's will for me is to be happy, joyous, and free, right? But um, if I'm happy, joyous, and free, that's my will, but it's in alignment with God's will for me. That was a really tough exercise, and but I finally figured it out, and today I fully understand what the impact of step 3 is about. Step 4, that's like, I hear a lot of people say how scared they are of step 4, but I'm a believer that if you bring God with you, that you're not doing it on your own. And really all you're doing is writing about yourself, which is all of our favorite topic. And, and that's really what that's about. And so, I did my 4th step, and then I went and did my 5th step with her. When I left her house, I had very clear-cut directions, which is what our book talks about, clear-cut directions on 6 and 7. And it's only 2 paragraphs, but there's so much in those 2 paragraphs to refer to this page. And it talks about the keystones and the cornerstones and all these things that we had read up to that point. And so, in reading to that point, I had the page numbers, and I had to go back and reread and really get a grip on the first 5 steps of our program. And 6 and 7 is about character defects. And I got to tell you, I got character defects today. But as long as I'm getting a benefit, because that's really what you're giving up, is the benefit. All of our character defects have a benefit. So if I'm willing to give up whatever the benefit is, then the character defect will probably ease down. It's kind of like whack-a-mole. You work on that one and it goes away, and then this one pops up. And so you work on that one, and then this one pops up, and that's just the way it is, and I'm grateful. I was telling somebody the other day how grateful I am that I always have something to work on in AA. Always there's something to work on. Step 8, I had my list. We made that when we did our 4th step, like the book says. And 9 was to go out and make amends. And, I know that in step 9, if I was afraid to make the amends or uncomfortable or unwilling, that I could back up a step and go back to step 8, where it talks about we pray for the willingness. And so, today I stand here, I've made all my amends, as uncomfortable as a lot of them were. But I need some water. I'm sorry. But all my amends are done. And then 10, 11, and 12 are, they're like this. 10's the walking around step. If you look in our book, all of our steps are included in step 10. And if I do that on a daily basis, like I know when I'm not being nice to somebody, I know immediately that I need to go make an amends to that person. And that's step 10 in action. 11 is prayer and meditation. So, I struggled with meditation. I didn't get it. I can't quiet this down, like that 30 seconds at the beginning of this meeting. God, it seemed like an hour. Thank you. So quieting my mind, is still today difficult, but I garden. So you put me out with my dirt and my flowers, and I can be out there for hours. I don't know where the time goes, but that is my form of meditation. And I think that everybody does it different. Some people get in their car and just drive, and that's their form of meditation. For me, it's gardening. And step 12 is just giving back what's been given so freely to me. And, I sponsor these women, and it's the most awesome experience to watch somebody come into AA. They don't get it. They don't know what's going on. And to get them as a sponsee and take them through this book, and you just watch them bloom. It's just so awesome. So that's what I do today. I try to practice these principles in all my affairs. I don't always succeed at that. I do the best I can. I am human. I don't want to be on a pedestal for anybody. I just want to be a member among the members. I don't because I have 38 years of sobriety, right? But I'm one drink away from a drunk, one, only one. So it doesn't matter if you've got 1 day or you got 10 years or 38 years. We're all one drink away. And and this is why I stay very plugged into Alcoholics Anonymous. Um, in 2015, my daughter, I have one child, and she OD'd and died at 38 years old. So, so you go, okay, well, that's pretty messed up. This is a little girl that was raised at Alcoholics Anonymous. She came to meetings and she sat in the back of the room and she colored, and then she'd bring little pictures around all you guys. And everybody knew her. And yet at 38 years old, she was drinking daily, and she died. She OD'd and died. And so I totally believe there's a silver lining, always, always a silver lining. I believe in living in the solution. And anybody that knows me knows that I totally drill home to live in the solution. So what could possibly good come out of that situation? And I can tell you in the following years, I have had 4 friends that have lost their children, and I'm the one they called because I didn't drink. I didn't pick up a drug. I kept going to meetings. The day my dad died, I went to a meeting. My mom passed away, I went to a meeting. When Megan died, I went to a meeting because that's just what I do. This is where I need to be. No matter what's going on with me, I need to be in these rooms because I mean, I could look around here. I know a few of you guys, some of you guys, I know a few of you guys from like forever, actually, but some of you guys I've never seen before. Yet I know that you're my people because we have the one common bond, and that's the we in the big book. It's not the it, it's the we. And it's really important that I accept a speaking engagement, or I say yes if I'm asked to be a sponsor, or I say yes to being the district secretary. um, and I just say yes. And I just suit up and I show up no matter what. I talk about going from A to B, sometimes a freaking 15-mile trek, and I'm talking A is my sofa, B is my car. And just that distance, because I don't want to put on clothes and go out to a meeting sometimes. But once I get in my car, I'm good. I just have to get up off of A and make that move to come here and get recovery and be around the people again that we all share that we thing. I love Alcoholics Anonymous. I never, when I got here, I was always just a social butterfly, so I did all that, but it took a while to actually get into the steps of the book, and the steps are really, really where it's at. That's where you're going to find the relief. It says the 12 suggested steps. So these guys kind of laugh when I say that. It does say suggestions. However, I feel like that gives you an out. Well, I don't really have to do that because it's just a suggestion. But my book says clear-cut directions. I mean, the word direction, I'd rather focus on that and have it be something that I have to do until I want to do it. Then I don't have to do it anymore because I'm doing it because I want to do it. So I just want to read this one little thing. It's on page 568, if anybody has it. It's in the spiritual experience in the back of our book. And the last 2 paragraphs, it says, most of us think that awareness of a power greater than ourselves is the essence of spiritual experience. Our more religious members call it God consciousness. Most emphatically, that means important. Most emphatically, we wish to say that any alcoholic capable of honestly facing his problems in the light of our experience can recover, provided he does not close his mind to all, it doesn't say some, it says all spiritual concepts. He can only be defeated by an attitude of intolerance or belligerent denial. We find that no one need have difficulty with the spirituality of the program. Willingness, honesty, and open-mindedness are the essentials of recovery. but these are indispensable. There's a principle which is a bar against all information, which is proof against all arguments, and which cannot fail to keep a man in everlasting ignorance. That principle is contempt prior to investigation. So, you know, it's important that even today I stay open-minded and willing and always honest. You know, the word honest is in how it works. The first paragraph, it's in there 3 times. That's an important word. And it's important that I try to practice that in all my affairs on a daily basis. And contempt prior to investigation, you know, that's what, you know, I did, because I'd been to treatment 3 times and I never did get sober. The last time I got my 3rd DWI, I went to treatment and I still drank for 2 more years because I had contempt against this program and what it could really do for me. So today, I'm really, really happy to be here in Alcoholics Anonymous. I'm stoked to be sober. And I gotta tell you, 38 years, it's like there's not a place to put the information, you know? And I think how people feel with 1 year or 7 months, that feeling never goes away. The feeling you have with 1 year, you're like, huh? 2 years, it's the same thing. And I stand here with that same feeling as the new guy that hasn't drank for 1 day, or, you know, and this is where I really try to right size myself and realize that I am just a member among members. I'm not better. I'm not, I just want to be a member among members. So I'm very grateful to be here. Thanks for my sobriety.